Swiss steak, when done right, is one of the most delicious comfort foods out there, making it perfect to serve up to family and friends. This English dish, also known as smothered steak, are cuts of tenderized beef braised in a seasoned up tomato sauce with caramelized onions and vegetables. Yeah, it's good. We're gonna start off by prepping that beef. Sound good? Let's cook. I've got a 2-pound cut of top round steak. Other great options are bottom round or chuck steak. I'm choosing top round because it's a little bit leaner and that's what my family likes. Now, when purchasing from the store, what I'm looking for in this cut is that it's bright red in color, has no dark brown or gray spots anywhere, and has a little bit of intermuscular fat. Now, what I want to do is break down this steak into smaller pieces. I'm going to do that by slicing it into 4 8-ounce pieces. If you want them smaller, slice those pieces in half again so that you have 8 4-ounce pieces. And believe it or not, Swiss steak is not from Switzerland, it's from the process of Swissing, which just simply means tenderizing. And these steaks are still pretty big. So I'm going to place it in a plastic zip bag. You could also use parchment paper or even just plastic wrap, and pounding it out with a mallet and pressing down and pulling out to stretch out the meat. It should be about a 1/4 inch to a 1/3 inch thick when you're finished. I'm just going to set it to the side on a sheet tray lined with parchment paper, and then I'm going to generously season it with coarse salt and fresh cracked black pepper. Now, when seasoning, you know I like to be a foot away from what I am seasoning so that I can cover all surface area, ensuring every bite is absolutely delicious. Season on both sides. Now, we have plenty of other things to do, so we're going to set this to the side and let those seasonings penetrate the meat to make it more flavorful. And then, of course, don't forget to give your cutting board a wash with hot water and soap, because, well, we just cut raw meat on it. And now to prep up some vegetables. I have 2 large yellow onions. You could also use white or sweets. Slicing off the end, slicing it in half, removing that outside peel. Then I'm going to thickly julienne it about a 1/2 inch thick. Next, I have 5 ribs of celery, which I'm going to cut on a slight bias about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inches thick. Then I have 1 very large carrot. 2 medium-sized carrots would be fine as well. Give them a quick peel, slice them in half, and then just like the ribs of celery, we're going to slice them on a bias about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch thick. Last but not least, I've got 4 garlic cloves, which I'm going to quickly smash and then give them a fine mince. And now to prep up dredging of the steaks, I have 1 cup of all-purpose flour. I love using these cake tins. You could also just use a shallow, wide bowl. I'm going to season it up with a little bit of coarse salt and make sure every step of the way is seasoned. Now, what I want to do to dredge the steaks is add it to the cake tin of seasoned flour, press down before giving it a flip, and then press down again. Move the pan around to ensure every little square centimeter is completely covered in the flour. Set it to the side on that same sheet tray lined with parchment paper and just repeat the process until all the steaks are dredged in the flour. And now it's time to start cooking. I've got a 6-quart rondeau pot. You could just use a Dutch oven or even a large sauce pot. I'm going to add in 3 tablespoons of olive oil and crank up the heat to high until the oil begins to lightly smoke. At this stage, I'm going to add in the steak. Be sure not to crowd the pan, and then immediately turn the heat down to medium. I'm going to cook it for in between 3 and 4 minutes or until it gets that nice brown outside crust, also known as the Maillard reaction. This will help ensure our steak is that much more flavorful. Don't skip out on this. We're going to give it a flip and cook it for a further 3 to 4 minutes on the other side until browned on all sides. Then we're going to set it to the side on a plate, and you may have to do this in batches, no problem. I have 1 more steak to fry up, no issue. Once that last steak is done, we're going to set it to the side and add our onions right to that pan. Now let's turn the heat from medium down to low. Using a spoon, scrape all of that goodness off the bottom of the pan. That's known as fond. That will ensure our braising liquid is that much more delicious. Take the time to do this. And we're going to take 25 to 30 minutes to ensure these onions are caramelized. And don't forget to stop and smell things and taste things. Take in this entire process. It's a beautiful thing, I promise you. Once you start practicing this more and more, you won't believe how good the food is that you're going to make. Now, once these onions are nice and brown and soft like this, we're going to go to the next stage by adding in our celery and carrots. We're going to turn the heat from low back up to medium, season them with salt, and we're just going to saute these for about 3 to 4 minutes or until you start to see a little bit of brown on the celery and carrots. At this stage, we're just going to add in our finely minced garlic, stir it in, and you know I always say it only takes about 30 to 45 seconds to cook or until it becomes fragrant. And now what I'm going to do is deglaze with 1.5 cups of good beef stock. If you need an awesome recipe, I've got one for you. Stir this in and continue to scrape the bottom to release all that fond and tasty goodness at the bottom. And now I'm going to add in some tomatoes. I've got a 28-ounce can of whole peeled San Marzanos without any juice. I'm going to squeeze them in one at a time to break them up. Now, other options would be just to use canned diced tomatoes without any juice, or you can dice up 4 vine-ripe tomatoes. Once they're all squeezed in and added in there, it's time to season everything up. I'm going to be using 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, then coarse salt, fresh cracked black pepper. Mix all of those ingredients together. And now, like I always say, grab a spoon, try it out. Make sure it's delicious. Do you need more salt or pepper or Worcestershire sauce? You have to be the judge here. This liquid is going to further enhance the flavor of our steak, so you want to take care that this is extremely flavorful. Once you've got it to where it needs to be, we're adding the steaks right back into that pan. The top of them should be just hanging out. Now I'm just going to add a lid, turn the heat down to low, and simmer it for about 2 hours or until the steak is fork tender. So the Swiss steak still has about 45 minutes left in the braising process. And one of the biggest questions, comments I always get is, well, what does this go well with? And believe it or not, steak goes exceptionally well with creamed corn. But look, I'm not talking about popping a can of creamed corn that your grandma used to do. We're going to make it from scratch, and it's going to be ridiculous. The best part is, corn just happens to be in peak season right now, so this is going to be crazy good. Let me show you how easy it is to make. I've got 5 ears of corn, which I'm going to quickly shuck, and then I'm going to stand it upright. Now, using a chef knife, slice down on the corn kernels to cut them away from the cob. Once you've sliced through, give the cob a quarter turn and continue slicing down, removing all the kernels, and just repeat the process with the other ears of shucked corn. Then just add all the kernels to a large bowl. Now stand the kernel-free corn cobs upright right in the bowl, and using the backside of your chef knife, scrape down on the cob to release all the corn milk. Oh, you have to do this. This is liquid gold. So much flavor, plus you'll add a little bit more to the overall yield. Win-win for everybody. And just like when cutting off the kernels, give the cob a quarter turn and continue to scrape down. Briefly set it to the side. Now, before we get into cooking everything, what I am going to do is remove the lid from our Swiss steak. It's got about 30 minutes left in the cooking process. I want some of that sauce to evaporate and concentrate down, and that's really hard to do with the lid on there. And now to cook up that creamed corn. I'm going to be using a 6-quart sauce pot over medium heat. Now I'm adding in 6 slices of cut up bacon. And all I want to do here is render the fat and ensure the bacon turns crispy brown, which only takes about 3 to 4 minutes. Once they're at this stage, use a slotted spoon to remove the bacon and set it to the side. But let's go back over to that pot where all that rendered bacon fat goodness is and add a half small diced yellow onion. You could also use a white or sweet onion. And what we're going to do is saute this for 7 to 8 minutes or until it's lightly browned. The onions are looking really good here, even amongst all that foam. I'm going to next add in 3 finely minced cloves of garlic. And you know the rule again, once you smell it, it's done, which usually takes about 30 to 45 seconds. And now let's add in our corn. We're going to turn the heat up to high and saute it for 3 to 4 minutes. Next, I'm adding in 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. We're going to try to create a little bit of roux here. Once it is completely mixed in, I'm next going to add in 2 cups of heavy whipping cream, followed up with 1 cup of whole milk. I suppose you could use 1%, 2%, or skim milk. We're going to cook it over medium heat for 10 to 12 minutes, occasionally stirring it until the kernels are cooked. It may take an additional 4 to 6 minutes, depending on how soft you like your corn. And so often, so many folks look at cooking as a chore. It does not need to be that, and it shouldn't be that. Cooking should be fun. You can absolutely pull this off. You're only limited by your own creativity. Don't forget that. Speaking of having some fun and sparking some creativity, I'm going to add in a 1/3 cup of finely grated Parmigiano Reggiano, 1 tablespoon of freshly minced thyme. We're going to add in most of those crispy bacon lardons, save a little extra for garnish at the end. Stir those in, and then I want to season with coarse salt and fresh cracked black pepper. Mix in those ingredients, and then of course, give it a taste, see what it needs. This needs nothing, my friends. And perfect timing, because guess what? The Swiss steak is finished as well. Simplicity so many times can be so elegant, especially when using the proper techniques, which always makes really good food and the best memories. Let me show you how I plate this up. All I like to do for the Swiss steak is finish with a little finely minced fresh parsley. You can serve it right in that pan if you'd like. And for the creamed corn, I'm going to add it to a large bowl and start hooking up the garnishes, starting with a little bit of the leftover crispy bacon, some more Parmigiano Reggiano, then a combination of thinly sliced chives and fresh thyme leaves. And this is what cooking is all about. Serving up delicious food, seeing people smile, and having amazing conversations around the table. I'll never get sick of this.
It's good, right, Lynn?
So good, dude.
Now, to me, this has Sunday dinner with friends and family written all over it. The smells, the flavors, so delicious, yet still so simple. Now, if you like this, you should see how I make my meatloaf. I've got a secret ingredient that I put in there. You will love it. Got a great recipe video. I'll see you on there.